I just kind of wanted to do a quick kind of vlog style video discussing pricing within photography. More aimed at, I guess, not newer shooters per se, but people that are kind of wanting to start to get into the industry. A trend that we tend to see are people really undervaluing photography. Now, I'm not saying that you going out there and only charging $500 to do a wedding is hurting me any at all, because you are definitely attracting clients that are not my clients. What I mean by that is you're attracting more of those clients who are more looking for a budget deal. They really can't bring themselves to spend, or maybe not even have the budget to be spending $2,000 plus for a wedding photographer. So you're definitely not hurting any other wedding photographer's business, but what you are doing is you're creating a lower market clientele for yourself. It's not something that you want to get yourself stuck into, because when you start shooting things, shooting weddings for $500 for a day, which is just absurd to be shooting for that amount of money. Even if you are just beginning, break it down, the amount of time that you spend. If you're there for 8 hours, and then the amount of hours that you spend doing the editing, the price that you're paying for your editing software. I understand that you're trying to get the experience and trying to build your portfolio, but there's better ways to be doing it. There's more cost-effective ways to be doing that. But then what ends up happening is, people, maybe they're really impressed with your work, so they start telling other people. If somebody asks, hey, has anybody got a suggestion for a wedding photographer? And they suggest you, and they're telling other people that, oh yeah, I only paid them $500. And now you've come to a point where you're wanting to raise your prices, but now you've been kind of coined as the $500 wedding photographer. And anytime you try to raise your price, people balk at it, or they don't return messages or calls or anything like that, and you've got yourself stuck in a loop where you're not able to secure any of those higher end clientele because you'd spent, the last year or two only charging $500 a client. And unfortunately, I see a lot of people do it, and I see a lot of people get themselves stuck into that situation, or having, a year and a half, 2 years booked out worth of $500 shoots, where they think, if I can, put 20, 30 weddings into a year, I'm making decent money. But really, when you think about the amount of time, amount of work that goes into it, you're losing money. A camera like this is not cheap. Paying for your insurance, which that's a whole other story there. But I have a feeling that a lot of these $500 for a wedding photographers don't have any type of insurance that's covering anything that could possibly happen. Now, it's very rare that something could happen there, but, something simple as a light stand falling over on top of someone can really hurt someone. And, you being a photographer who's charging $500 for a wedding, that's going to put you out of business real quick. It's something that I just want other people to really think of, really consider when you're pricing out and you're starting out. If you really need to get some portfolio stuff, see if you can do, second shoot with somebody and ask them if it's okay if you use the images that you did for your own portfolio. And just tell them that, because this is the way that I started out. I would second shoot, and I would make sure it was okay that I use those images, because a lot of times in the contract, you're not allowed to use those images. But I would tell them, I'm going to edit them in my own way and all of that. Don't use their edits at all. But a lot of the guys didn't mind that at all, because they knew, you kind of get started somewhere. But yeah, you definitely do not want to get yourself started out as that $500 photographer, and then, God forbid, not even have insurance or anything like that. Something happens, and you're now in a whole lot of trouble financially. A light stand falls on top of somebody's head. That visit to the ER alone is going to cost you over $1,000 easy. I don't even remember what it is to walk into the ER anymore. Not cheap, but yeah, it's definitely something you want to think of. And then, even as you're trying to move up and you're trying to improve your equipment, when you're doing a $500 wedding, you don't have the budget at all to be able to improve your equipment. You are just dumping your own money into a very expensive hobby, and it's not something you want to do. And for the ones that, that's their budget, that's all they can afford. What I actually do is a couple times a year, I do, I'm not. It's not that I advertise, but I'll have some that do reach out to me, and that's just absolutely all they can afford. And I try to take on 1 or 2 of those a year, just to try to help some people out. But just like everybody else, I've got bills to pay. I've got to keep my stuff going. So I could no way ever sit there and charge $500 or even $1,000 for weddings. So just something to keep in mind when you're trying to put together your billing for photography, and that really goes into any part of it, not just wedding photography. Just keep that in mind.